Cameras on me?
All right, welcome everyone. It's 6:30. This meeting is now called to order. It's 6:30. And the meeting is now called to order. So welcome everyone. If you need agenda, if you don't have on your desk, there's one out there. Okay. All right, we're going to start with roll call. And I will now ask the assistant to the city manager to take attendance by roll call.
Commissioner Chadwell,
Present.
Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Chair Wakidu,
Here.
Commissioner Poikon, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Vice Chair Sylvester.
Here.
I will read it, sorry. Okay, seeing that we have two commissioners not yet here, and I don't know the reason for them not being here at this time. We'll follow the normal procedure. So per council policy K-02 on council advisory bodies, I must now propose that the commissioner's absence be defined as excused or unexcused. The commission would then determine by general consensus whether the status of the absent is excused or unexcused per the list of qualified excuses laid out in the council policy. In the absence of general consensus, the commission will take a formal vote. I propose that per the list of qualified excuses defined in council policy K-02, Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Poikon absences, which is for a personal matter that is not among the list of qualified excuses, be defined as unexcused. If the commissioners are in agreement, please raise your hand. Okay, just if the commissioners are in general consensus, please raise your hand. I don't see hands raised.
Oh, we have raised them.
Oh, okay.
Not high enough.
I know.
Great.
I like your happy faces.
Thank you. That's
Okay,
just
so
the
we'll
outside.
now move to roll call vote.
Commissioner Chadwell,
For those who are absent.
Oh,
As unexcused.
yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Wakidu,
Yes.
Commissioner Poikon, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Webb,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sylvester.
Yes.
Okay. So now we'll move to item 3, minutes approval. We have 2 minutes to be approved today, and one will be for November 7th and the other will be for November 12th. The minutes for the November 7th, 2024 regular meeting has been delivered to commission members and posted in the City Hall bulletin board. If there are no corrections or additions, a motion is in order to approve these minutes. Is there anyone making a motion to approve the minutes, or do you have any corrections or additions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Let's go to second.
I'll second.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing? None? So we're all in agreement with the minutes now
Aye.
approved.
I'm sorry, was that a motion for both November 7th and November 12th?
Yes. Okay, so we'll now move on to open the floor for any communication from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to make their comments. State law prohibits the commission from acting on non-agenda items. For those attending the meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function or press *9 on your phone to make a comment. The floor is now open to comments for those who are in attendance. There's no in person. Are there any virtually? Okay, seeing that there's none, we're going to move on. We're now going to move on to item 5, unfinished business. Item 5.1 is a storytelling project ad hoc committee. The storytelling project ad hoc committee will present an oral update, and no action will be taken on this item. Who will be giving the presentation or update? Storytelling.
Your turn. Yeah, I think summary update is that I don't have much of an update. Did we meet?
No.
Okay, because I see the recurring event on my calendar, but I'm pretty sure
That's
that's
the old one.
Yeah, okay. And the deadline's still extended. I apologize because I've yet to actually manage to submit the thing that I meant to submit. I still will. And I believe. I think the next step for us is probably to meet again and see if we want to revitalize the project for after the holidays, maybe, I was thinking, I would at least like to do some days at the library, if the library is open to that, of sitting there with some worksheets that they can fill out and invite people to come down and sit with us and, turn it in right there and then. But, I think we're probably not gonna get that off the ground till after the holidays.
Okay, are there any questions from commissioners anyhow? None? I don't believe we have anyone.
Be in January, do you think, or February? I think so. I mean, depending on what the library's availability is, I'm not really sure how much support that kind of programming requires. I'm free January and February, so it'd really just be what they prefer.
Any other comments or questions? Or, okay. Or do you have anyone?
We have someone, but no comments.
No comments. Okay, seeing that there are no comments from the public, we're going to move on to item 5.2, the LGBTQ plus listening forum committee. The LGBTQ plus listening committee will present an oral update. No action will be taken on this item. Who will be presenting the update on this? Who's on that committee?
No, it's Eric.
Or would anyone who attended the forum like to give an update?
Yeah.
or report out on the forum?
Will anyone who
Yeah, yeah.
attended the listening forum like to give an update?
Didn't you? I don't know.
Fine, well, I did attend. There were, I believe, 5 HRC members there. And I think there were, maybe, was it 10 members in attendance? I think I saw the numbers that Christina shared about the overall attendance, but I think the county's attendance included us plus potentially staff plus members of the public. I thought it was a very good discussion, even though it was pretty limited in size. I thought the county did a really good job laying out the discussion points, the questions. They were limited questions, so we really got to deep dive at the tables. They had a very cool scribe who did visual notes, which may have been the most interesting thing. Gives us this wonderful takeaway that we could all sort of understand and relate to just by taking a look at it. So that was just a really cool tool. I thought it was good. The 2 or 3, we're at the same table, right? There were 2 members of the public at our table, I think, for a part of the time. They seem to be really enjoying discussing and sharing about resources and saying, oh, I've never heard of this resource. So there was definitely a lot of I didn't knows being shared in the room as a whole. There were a couple of attendees who were a little bit skeptical about the kind of resources that there are and didn't feel that they were very accessible in North County. So I think the county will take that back, that they need to do a better job educating people about resources, especially up here in North County.
And some of the people at my table were evincing surprise that their experiences weren't unique.
Well,
Yeah.
are there any other comments on the listening forum?
I also attended. It was a wonderful event, very well done. And I was impressed. I didn't realize that the county, they said that they were, the county team, they said that they're going to every municipality and like local universities and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's really awesome. They're covering all that ground, and it makes sense why it was such a win for us, because it's such an easy event, because they just did all the work and we got to show up and attend this really well done conversation. And I think one takeaway that I remember was there was people talking about there's the desire for more LGBTQ spaces in Mountain View, that, it's, not talking just like gay bars and stuff like that, but also just like places where there's, third spaces where you're not expected to spend money, you can just hang out, weird book clubs, things like that. And, kind of just the desire for connection. And I forget my other point, but it was lovely then.
Yeah, I think I was very impressed by the amount of resources that they brought with them. And I wish there were more people there to have access to that and to know that there's help and there's information. And so I think maybe for next time, maybe we should think of a better way of promoting the event, because it was really well put together, like you all have said.
If I add anything to it, overall, I think it was a wonderful event for us to participate in, to show our partnership with the LGBTQ community and show that we're here to support them as well as members of our community. I mean, that was one thing that the people at my table really took away from it. So it was a sharing of, like, being from the cisgender community, getting the perspective of those people there. Like, we see all the things are out that are for us versus there's nothing out there for them, or what's lacking out there for the LGBT community within our city. And that gives us something to build upon as well going forward. So like you said, when we have this event again, we can actually talk to the community and say, come support this part of our community as well. So it doesn't have to just be LGBTQ people that are coming. We should have people from the other community as well show up so they can become more educated in this space and more accepting of this space and showing support. So I think this is something that we should make an initiative to do going forward.
Great.
A couple of my neighbors who came said what the goal should be is that there's no need for this kind of experience because everybody is embraced as part of the neighborhood and the community at large. And they said that's the way they felt about being part of Mama Loma. So what they want to do is replicate their feelings and the interactions that they get from their own neighborhoods into other neighborhoods.
And I actually remembered, there was one person who brought up talking about basically wanting to, that, we need to teach activism to the new generation, and sort of, he was making the comment that he wasn't clear how to engage with the city on these issues. But my specific question actually for city staff is that he had mentioned that he had heard rumors of Mountain View Pride happening, or like, is that, can you speak to that at all? I might just be, I probably should have just Googled it, but.
Yeah, so there's a Pride event that's being planned by
Nice.
Community Services. It'll be the first Pride event, I think. Initiated by the city of Mountain View, and I believe right now the tentative date is the first Saturday in June. But more information will be forthcoming.
And that's something that we could be involved in, or I don't know if, I guess we'll get to that when we get to
We
it.
can certainly let the CSD staff know that the HRC is interested in engaging in the event. I think they're already kind of planning. CSD does a great job of hosting a wide variety of community events. But certainly we can talk to them about how the HRC could be engaged and involved.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other feedback, comments from the listening forum? Okay. Not open this for the public. Is there any attendee? Is anyone? No comments. Okay, seeing that no comments from the public, we're going to move on to item 5.3, to the Multicultural Festival Committee. The Multicultural Festival Committee will present an oral update. No action will be taken on this item. And I'll be giving the update on that. So I was able to attend the brief meeting with two members of the Community Services Department. And it was a very kind of in-depth. I didn't realize it would take that much time, but it did. And I was thankful for that. So we just did a recap of the past event to see what worked and what could be improved upon. So just reviewing the successes and what we could change looking forward, what opportunities for the event coming up March 25th. So one thing that was decided was to do a save the date to announce to past and potential performers, and also to send an application just to be able to get more participants, especially since it's going to become an annual thing. So that was one of the ideas that came out of the process. And this will start like sometime in January to save the date. And one of the improvements that were recommended was that they would like the HRC to be more involved and also help maybe even in reviewing the potential list of performers, to also create diversity and also to manage and determine the duration of performances, which we saw from the past was a challenge when some of the performances would get a bit longer than usual. And so to keep things within time. So this is where they would like to have the HRC review the potential list. And another idea that came up was to schedule meetings before and after, so that there'll be information going both ways with the HRC, and to also seek the HRC's assistance in maybe also reaching out to new groups. So it won't be like the repetitive groups that we see year after year. And so the internal staff said they will continue to explore ideas and just update us as things move along with information. And just excited I'm looking forward to the event for next year. So, yeah. That's the update.
So, given that there's a time limit for the event, are they going to limit the number of participants, one? And if they do limit the participants, how are they gonna show preference for old versus new, and the diversity of the group?
I don't know if they plan to
How did they
limit it.
discuss it?
Yeah, they didn't discuss that, but I think they looked at the past two events. One year where they had, enough people, and last year what changed was because of the weather. And when the event was changed, some of the participants dropped off because the schedule didn't meet their own schedule. And so they felt like they didn't have as much participant as they would have if the event had been held on the original date.
Mm.
Yeah, so, but I think they want to see a little bit more diversity and variety in performance. And that's where the help of the HRC to help reach out to maybe other groups to then sing, even though different styles, but seem to be the same ethnic groups. So that'll be a continued discussion to ask them next
I
time.
think the other question I had was, since they're doing it for free.
Mhm.
The reason they're doing it is for publicity, or I'm assuming, or the kindness of their hearts. Is there a conversation happening about a stipend of some sort, or a meal, or anything like that? Because I know that's been something they've talked about, or we talked to the performers about in the past.
Yeah, I kind of brought up the idea in even my attempt to reach out to groups last year. That was some of the questions people asked. Is this a paid participation? And so I just presented it to them, but in terms of talking about a stipend or some food voucher or whatever, that wasn't discussed. But so I think that should be a follow-up in the next meeting with them to say, this might be a recommendation to have maybe an incentive for maybe other groups who you might want to see, you know, so that I think that will be a suggestion to the community services department. Because they're really looking for input as well, how to make this better. So I think that's something that could be suggested to them.
Did you guys have a discussion about like the food trucks or anything like that? Or are they gonna try and do the downtown?
No, there was no discussion about
Restaurants.
food. I think the intention of this initial meeting was more to debrief and brainstorm. You know, debrief on what happened in the past and then to brainstorm on various ones. And now, instead of just one person who was the lead, Daisy, Maureen is now part of this. So she was really seeking ways to make this more of, you know, a better, you know, event. So yeah, so there was a lot of questions, yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Anyone in the public? Okay, so seeing that there are no members of the public, we're going to move on to new business item 6. Item 6.1 is an overview of the Community Development Block Grant to the CDBG and Home Investment Program and Annual Action Plan. Housing staff will present an oral update and no action will be taken on this item.
Hello, Commissioners. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Alec Fiberl, and I am a housing officer with the city's Affordable Housing Division. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm joined by Julie Bernard, the Affordable Housing Manager, and Wayne Chen, the Housing Director, and Parneet Dinza, the Human Services Manager, who are both attending virtually. We're also virtually joined by one of our consultants, Heidi Agler from Root Policy, to help answer technical questions relating to the consolidated plan. Today, I will be giving you a presentation on the federal fiscal year 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan, the 2025 through 2026 annual action plan, and the associated notice of funding availability, also known as the NOFA. The information being provided today will give you some background about the consolidated plan, annual action plan, and NOFA processes, and staff would like to request your input on some recommendations. I'm going to start off with an overview of what exactly these plans and processes are. The city is currently in the process of developing its next consolidated plan, which is a federally mandated document required for jurisdictions that receive annual housing and community development grant funding. The consolidated plan is updated every 5 years and outlines housing needs, barriers to affordable housing, and includes a strategic plan with priority needs and goals to assist low and moderate income households. During the 5-year consolidated plan cycle, the city also prepares 1-year annual action plans that serve to implement specific projects and activities to address the priorities identified in the consolidated plan. The development process for the consolidated plan and annual action plan includes community engagement, public comment periods, required public hearings, and input from yourselves, the human relations commissioners, with final approval by the city council before submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, by May 15th. The Community Development Block Grant Program, known as CDBG for short, is one of 2 key federal funding sources that the city receives to address community development needs. The CDBG program has its own unique allowed uses of funds and eligible activities. For example, there are restrictions on what percentage of the funding can be used for different purposes. A maximum of 15% can be used for public service activities, such as homelessness prevention programs and senior services, and a maximum of 20% can be used for program administration. Eligible activities that the city typically funds also includes capital projects, such as the rehabilitation of affordable housing or minor home repairs for low and moderate income homeowners. The Home Investment Partnerships Program, known as HOME, is the second key funding source that the city receives from the federal government, and it serves to help fund affordable housing-related programs and developments. Home funding only allows a maximum of 10% to be used for administration, with the remaining amount used for eligible activities such as new construction and rehabilitation of housing developments, financial assistance to eligible home buyers or owners for home purchase or rehabilitation, or tenant-based rental assistance. The city funds public service activities and affordable housing projects through CDBG and home funding, either via a notice of funding availability or NOFA, or direct allocations. The city operates its NOFA on a 2-year funding cycle for public services to improve administrative efficiency and to allow the recipients to have a more accurate projection of their future finances. Capital project funding is directly allocated to projects that align well with CDBG and home funding criteria, and this ensures that resources are effectively utilized. I will talk more about this in a moment. In addition to CDBG, the city annually allocates $171,000 from its general fund to supplement the federal funds and supports human services, cultural, arts, and other programs. Eligible general fund public service activities include those that align with the goals and strategies in the city's consolidated plan, or important services that are not eligible for CDBG funding. Historically, general fund public services grants are oversubscribed, meaning that more funds are requested than are available in the budget. In the case of an oversubscription, city staff recommend prorating eligible applications. Does the HRC support this approach? The HRC serves an important role in the process for allocating CDBG and home funding by reviewing staff's recommended uses for the funds. The HRC also review the draft consolidated plan and annual action plan, provide feedback to staff, and make a recommendation to the city council for adoption. At a past HRC meeting in November 2022, the commissioners helped to establish policies to ensure effective program implementation for CDBG and home. These policies include a minimum grant amount of $7,500 for CDBG and general fund public services to account for the cost of compliance requirements that agencies must implement. A policy was also established to utilize a direct allocation method for CDBG and home capital projects. The city has an extensive affordable housing project pipeline that requires funding, and directly allocating funds for those projects provides a more streamlined method of doing so. Now that I've given some background information, I'll talk more about the current process that the city is undergoing for the consolidated plan. The city is currently in its fiscal year 2020 through 2025 consolidated plan cycle, and this will end on June 30th, 2025. This consolidated plan included the following 6 priority needs: increase affordable housing for low and moderate income and special needs households, establish and support programs to prevent and end homelessness, support public service activities that promote safety, security, wellness, and well-being for low and moderate income households and special needs populations such as seniors, abused and neglected youth, and the disabled. Support programs and activities that strengthen and enhance neighborhoods, promote fair housing opportunities, and promote economic resiliency, improve workforce development and skills training. As the 2020 through 2025 consolidated plan comes to an end, the city is developing its 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan, which will guide housing and community development efforts from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2030. This process involves community engagement, stakeholder consultation, collection and analysis of economic and demographic data, and an analysis of the housing and economic market conditions. The city has partnered with Santa Clara County and other participating jurisdictions in the county to develop each jurisdiction's respective consolidated plan through a regional process. This allows for a more streamlined development, identifies shared issues and needs, and facilitates conversation about potential areas of collaboration. Understanding what the most important priorities are on a regional level will help participating jurisdictions to coordinate and pool limited resources to make a larger impact. At the same time, staff is ensuring that local Mountain View priorities and needs are being properly identified and incorporated into the city's consolidated plan through the community and stakeholder engagement process, which I will talk about more in a moment. The regional process for the 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan is being facilitated by the joint consultant team of Route Policy and Community Planning Collaborative, who were selected through a county-led RFP process. The 2025 through 2026 annual action plan will describe the specific activities that will be funded by CDBG and Home for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as the funding amounts and performance goals for those activities. Public service funding allocations included in the annual action plan are determined via the NOFA process, with eligible applications reviewed and recommended by staff, approved by the HRC, and finalized by the City Council. Fiscal year 2025 through 2026 is the first year of the few-year funding cycle. As previously discussed, capital projects are funded through the direct allocation method. The city consistently directly allocates CDBG capital funding to Rebuilding Together Peninsula for their minor home repair program, which provides emergency home repairs to low and moderate income Mountain View homeowners. The upcoming NOFA process will provide potential applicants with the estimated funding amounts and approval timeline for the upcoming fiscal year. There is approximately $233,000 of CDBG funds and $171,000 of general funds available for public services. There will be a mandatory pre-submittal conference for applicants on December 13th, where they will be provided with an overview of the funding opportunity, a walkthrough of the application process, and allowed to ask questions. Applications are submitted through an online platform called Zoom Grants, and they include an overview of the proposed grant-funded program, including information about beneficiaries and performance metrics, the desired amount of funding, and documentation to establish organizational structure and capacity. The fiscal year 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan is in the process of being developed. Therefore, priority needs for the next 5-year cycle have not yet been established. However, staff anticipates that market trends and key community priority needs have remained the same. Therefore, staff recommends using 3 of the 6 existing priority needs from the current 2020 through 2025 consolidated plan for the upcoming NOFA. These priority needs are increase affordable housing for low and moderate income and special needs households, establish and support programs to prevent and end homelessness, and support public service activities that promote safety, security, wellness, and well-being for low and moderate income households and special needs populations such as seniors, abused and neglected youth, and the disabled. These 3 priority needs were chosen because they're the most common needs that were addressed through the prior NOFA applications that the city received, and there were not many applications that addressed the other 3 priority needs. Staff recommend using these 3 priority needs to evaluate the upcoming public service applications. Does the HRC support this approach? If so, staff will return to the HRC with funding recommendations that align with these priorities in the spring. Additionally, do the commissioners have any input regarding the priority needs that should be included in the upcoming NOFA and consolidated plan? For the 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan, Route Policy and the Community Planning Collaborative are leading the regional community engagement efforts and conducting the needs analysis and market assessment of housing and community development related issues for each of the participating jurisdictions. The outreach includes several targeted activities to gather input on housing and community development needs and involves regional components as well as events specific to Mountain View. Key components include stakeholder meetings, public workshops, pop-up events, an online survey, and outreach through social media. There has already been 1 stakeholder consultation meeting, 2 workshops, and 3 pop-up events, with 1 being in Mountain View at the Dia de Muertos event. There will be 2 more stakeholder consultation meetings for the region, 1 more public workshop that will be specifically for Mountain View residents on December 16th, and a roundtable with community-based organizations on January 14th. In addition to these events, there's an online survey that opened on October 25th and will be available until December 31st. Information about these events has been publicized through Facebook, X, previously known as Twitter, Nextdoor, the city's website, a council connection article, email blasts, and the Let's Talk Housing website. These efforts will help to identify the priority needs that will be contained in the 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan. This table provides a summary of the process and timeline for the consolidated plan, annual action plan, and NOFA. Staff will return to the HRC tentatively scheduled for the meeting on March 6, 2025, to provide them with drafts of the 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan, 2025 through 2026 annual action plan for review and feedback. Staff will also provide the commissioners with information on the NOFA applications that were submitted and request consideration of the recommended funding allocations. The process for developing the 2025 through 30 consolidated plan and 2025 through 26 annual action plan will culminate in the adoption by the City Council in April 2025. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you for your time, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. Very well detailed. Any questions from commissioners on the presentation? On any aspect of it? Yes.
This is a kind of an off-the-wall question. And it doesn't really fit specifically into anything, but it's kind of an umbrella question. I've had a number of people recently tell me that Mountain View doesn't, what's their word? Doesn't value pedestrians. And that there is a constant battle between cars, especially wanting to turn right, and pedestrians wanting to cross that street. Now, that's not specific to this, but it's specific to the safety of the residents and visitors to Mountain View. And I don't know whether HRC can do anything about this, except maybe communicate to the police department that pedestrians do have some rights in Mountain View, but apparently drivers don't know that.
So Chair, would you, if you don't mind, perhaps Assistant City Manager Andrews and myself can respond to that question?
And the city manager's office is aware that oftentimes at the transportation committee, they focus on bike more than bike ped. And so that is an issue we're aware of, and we're gonna address it through the city manager's office.
Sorry, that's literally what happened to me on my way here. I
But we-
couldn't cross the street.
But we appreciate the question. It'll just be channeled through a different venue than the
I'm
HRC.
sure there was.
Thanks.
I know that some people have complained to the chief of police. And some people have complained to members of city council. And so I just decided I would take their complaints to us so that it would be another body in the city with the same message.
And we have heard the complaints come through both of the channels you just described.
I could see a tie-in there to the priorities of increasing affordable housing, at least in terms of with increasing affordable housing, making sure that we're planning for safe pedestrian access to those. But again, that's something that I already know the city is working on that. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Joan. I've definitely had that experience, and I know just to small example, there's the affordable housing for the MVWSD employees, I believe, that's coming up on Shoreline. And I drive Shoreline a lot, and there's already a ton of jaywalking to get to the Safeway. And so I'm already kind of wondering, like, what is that gonna look like when there's a lot of people living there? But anyway, that's getting off on a tangent. A specific question is, in the case of oversubscription of general funds, city staff recommends prorating eligible applications. I think I know what that means, so would you mind
Yeah, could you
clarifying
give
what
an
that means?
example
Yeah.
on this?
Sure, yeah, so
That was mine too.
unfortunately, there's always a limited amount of funds that we can provide, right? And when there's so many organizations in need for the funding to provide the valuable services that they do, we have to try and figure out a way to do that fairly and equitably. So one of the suggestions that staff has is to use like a prorating method. So therefore, every organization that submits a eligible application that meets the other, criteria, they're have organizational capacity, et cetera, everybody gets a piece of the pie, right? We want everybody to know that the city values them, and their organization, and we want to ensure that they all have a fair opportunity to receive some funding.
With a minimum of 7,500.
Yes,
So maybe they request 10,000 or something, and we say, okay, if everybody requests what they want, we don't have enough money. So we're gonna give you as much as we can, which might be the minimum of 7,500. Okay, great, thank you.
So that I piggyback off of that, we've gone through this many times. And what is equitable? Right, if I'm asking for 30,000, depending on the pool size, number of applicants, right? It's the $7,500 across the board equitable. I mean, we've spent many nights, long hours doing this. So how will we determine what equitability truly is in this case? Then my other question is, as far as like the minimum, and I know some of these people, they spend hours doing these applications, and then all of the extra work with the reporting, is it worth it for them to do for $7,500? Should we readdress that amount? And also, should we factor in the cost of doing these projects over time to do an annual increase of that lower threshold? Right, so these are just some questions I want each of you guys take a look at.
That makes sense.
Hey, Alec and Julie, this is Parneet. I'm on the screen. I just wanted to respond, kind of follow up on Alec's note specifically regarding, or somebody had a comment about the equitable piece. I wanted to share that the prorated amount would also be based on a certain percentage. So it would mean, for example, as Alex mentioned, each eligible applicant would get the same percentage of their requested amount. So for example, it could be 75%. That means if 10 organizations apply, let's say 8 are eligible, staff recommends the 8, each organization is going to have a different funding request amount, right? The minimum would still have to be 7,500, but each applicant would then get that prorated amount. So one would get 75% of their 30,000 requests, for example. Another one would get 75% of 10,000, for example. So just wanted to clarify that piece. The percentage that they receive of their funding request amount would be the same. I hope that
So,
helps.
Parneet, sorry, but being a math geek, if I can just follow on that. So let's say it is a $10,000 request, 75% is 7,500, which is the minimum. That means if a requester met all the other criteria at 20,000, they'd receive 15,000, which is 75% of 20,000. Am I hearing you correctly?
That's what she's saying.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that part of the process evaluates whether or not their request makes sense for the services they offer. Okay, I was like, I can just request a lot of money, but
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not the first person to think of that.
I'm looking at that as well, because it's kind of gaming the system as well. Once I know that's what you're doing over time, I'm gonna ask for more. So that 75% that you guys are doing, I'm gonna ask for, if I only need 50, I'm gonna ask for 100. Once I learn it. So it's still not equitable. It's a challenge. Like Rose and I know, we've been up late nights trying to figure this out. It's a challenge, and I mean, you throw the numbers out there, and I'm a numbers guy too, so I know, and I know how to game the system as well. So it's a challenge to make this fair across the board, and there's still needs, so that kind of factors into it too. So the 10,000 may be a need more because it's a newer organization and they're still trying to build their foundation. versus someone that we've seen here time and time and time again because they just know how to do it. And they don't need that much. They just need a certain amount. So it's a challenge. So,
I can comment if you, I have just some thoughts about how we would not define, but just sort of think about equitable. Like you're saying, like each service is very unique and sometimes it just has to be handled on a case by case basis and more, you know, it might be more a visceral thing than it is a logical thing because each nonprofit has their own budgets, they have their own goals. And that's something that to always keep in mind as well is like how many people are they able to serve with the money that we're providing them. So what I would also maybe point out or recommend is that if we aren't able to fund the full amount, we could also say that they are welcome to reduce their goals commensurate with the funding that we're not providing them. So it's very, very difficult to do an apples to apples, like, oh, this, you know, nonprofit can fund 50 people with $50 and this one needs $5,000 for 2 people. Like it's just, we can't, like, there's no good formula to like apply without looking at each application on a case by case basis and then also monitoring their performance over time if they are ones that we continue to fund. So I will point you to that when you see us again in the spring. We will provide you with the goals and what their budget request is and then the staff recommendation. But to even take a step further back, the minute they come in, to your point, Commissioner Chadwell, we would always confirm that they're eligible for the funding. And whether or not the funding request makes sense, even like, is it passing the staff sniff test?
If
Yeah, I
I can
think
comment
also-
too to add on to Julie, you know, one of the evaluations that we have also is reviewing applicant's budget. So we do require a budget be uploaded as part of their application and staff review that thoroughly line by line to ensure that it, you know, tracks and there's nothing frivolous in there to speak. So I want to just share that with you all as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think she kind of spoke to what I was thinking too, but I also thought, I think some of the challenges we faced was because we don't see the application, because they see the details and we don't, and they're presented to us and we're helping to do the allocations. So that's where some of the, well, we question, how is this, you know, being fair, you know, so I think that's what it's about. I think she, as I kind of commented on, yeah, I mean, you have to submit your budget as well. And your priorities are, because like you said, it can be, it's not apple to apple. Everybody's needs are different, so.
well, that's where it's a misunderstanding when you're saying it's equitable. Right, if you're saying we're gonna prorate across the board, that's not what you're actually going to do if you're looking at the case by case.
Maybe we're getting stuck on the word like equitable in the
Yeah.
wrong way. I think what we mean is an equitable, it would be an equitable reduction for everybody based on their request.
Yeah, it's, let me put it a simple way. Cutting your coat according to your
Or
size.
equal.
And everybody gets what is rightful for their,
Yes.
what they need.
Yeah.
That's equitable.
Well, if it's for what they need, it's different.
Yeah, but it's not equal. It's not gonna be exact across, but for what the need is.
Well, it sounds like
You
it will.
see
be
how,
exact
you understand?
across.
I think,
Yeah.
So it's
because it's an ambiguous word. Yeah, the word is
Exactly.
ambiguous.
Prorated.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Prorated.
prorated and it's ambiguous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've fought.
And then we've gone through the way, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. Okay,
So anyway,
let's move on to eligibility. So we've had some, and I'm bringing this up because in the past, there's been some that we've seen there, they weren't eligible. So we've seen them on the list, but they weren't eligible. And I want to make sure that there's a process in place to help these organizations that are not able to fill out the application properly. If you're doing some follow-up, if the city's doing follow-up to help guide them down the process, especially if they're new. Because I think these are the ones that are falling through the cracks. So are we doing that? Or are we going to address it?
Yeah, the city is hosting a mandatory pre-submittal webinar on the 13th. So this is the opportunity for every organization who's interested in applying to attend, ask any questions they need. We walk them specifically how to use the online Zoom Grants platform. And more or less, we provide them with technical assistance just to ensure that they fully understand the process and know how to do it. And then even if there are questions beyond that webinar, staff is always happy to meet, talk, and assist.
Yeah, and I can just add to Alex's point, because I was supporting this process the last cycle, and there was another housing staff as well, and we both made ourselves available to walk through application questions or documentation questions, especially for the smaller organizations that need a little bit more support. So in the part of the presentation, we did mention that staff for CDBG, which would come from housing, and staff from for the public services, which would come from human services, are available. And we also held, I think, 2 one-on-ones with organizations to address their questions. So we did make ourselves available to support them in whatever fashion they needed. And in that case, it was just their first time applying. So we were happy to help them just provide a more hand-holding type of support.
I have a question on the priority needs. So I see that for this round, the consolidated plan, the proposal is to pare it down from 6 priority needs to 3. I think my first instinct is that I'd support that. Seems like the 3 priority needs that are being kept are the ones that to me make the most sense for this. The 3 priority needs that would be eliminated are from the last consolidated plan is support programs and activities that strengthen and enhance neighborhoods, promote fair housing opportunities, and promote economic resiliency and improve workforce development and skills training. My question is, what was the main reasoning behind the proposal to pare those down? Is it just for, ease of making it less complicated? And I'm also wondering, are we anticipating that some programs not qualifying now that those priorities are no longer no longer part of it? And is that going to free up money? Were we kind of looking at this as sort of trying to, slim down the number of programs that qualify and give them more money?
So this NOFA is unique in that it's occurring in the kind of in-between period between the prior 5-year consolidated plan and when we're drafting the new consolidated plan, right? So, typically we would have established priority needs already ready and all of them would be included in the NOFA. So, for example, in the next funding cycle, the NOFA will include the priority needs that are identified in the 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan. But in this instance, since we're in that in-between period, we were trying to identify what priority needs should be included in the NOFA without having the officially established needs for the next consolidated plan period. So we decided to choose those 3 that we mentioned due to those being the 3 priority needs that received the most applications in the past, right? Those are the top 3 needs that the city provided funding for in the past consolidated plan cycle. So we thought that, with market trends continuing, those would be the most important. Again, with that being said, if activities are applying for, if organizations are applying for activities that address the other 3 priority needs, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not eligible.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So
I was gonna ask that, I was like,
Yeah.
it's a priority, but it's not.
Right, we're trying to exemplify, the
excluded.
city has these values, this is what we want to prioritize.
Okay.
Therefore, we're looking for applications to address these needs.
So-
But, you're still eligible even if it doesn't necessarily fit that.
got it. So is it fair to say then that this is moving through a tier system? Like these first 3 priorities are the first tier of pressure, who would be eligible for the CDBG funding or NOFA? And then the reason, and I thank you for answering that question. Oh, part of the question of who would qualify or not, I was thinking about the day worker center. And day worker center would fall under criteria 6 of it, and if it's eliminated, would it then? My fear is, would then they think for themselves that there's no point in applying for this grant because it is not outright stated for this purpose for me. You know what I'm saying?
So under HUD's criteria, there are very black and white requirements as to what's eligible and what's not eligible. So there's what we call matrix codes. It's a list of activities that HUD provides where they say these types of activities are eligible under public services. This is available under economic development, et cetera, right? So when activities are able to meet those matrix codes and a couple other requirements, as well as, you know, establish that they're a responsible organization, they have the capacity to carry out these activities efficiently, they're providing an impact in the community. If they meet those criteria, then at a baseline, they are eligible, right? The priority needs are mainly for the city to message, this is what we value and this is what we're looking for.
But if they're messaging that, that's also saying to the day worker center that they're not gonna be considered or they're not gonna be a priority because of that.
I see Director Chen's hand up, so he might wanna. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. Thank you for the question. I believe that the third identified priority of supporting public service activities that promote a variety of pieces would cover, for example, the day worker center. I don't believe we've actually received an application under economic development activities. So that is one reason why we're not recommending including it in this cycle. It may be identified as something once the consolidated plan update is completed, and then we can add it back. But we haven't really had any applicants fall under that bucket. And so the day worker center, I don't believe would be applying under economic development activities anyway. But this is where we are really requiring the webinar to walk through this, have folks ask questions and say, hey, we think we might be in this bucket. Does that mean we don't qualify? And we could say, no, you would definitely qualify, just check this box.
Wayne, sorry, but that begs a question. As we move towards this webinar, are we reaching out to all prior candidates and inviting?
That's what we had.
No?
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay.
That's
So
what
there's an
that's what I thought.
invitation.
Yeah.
Okay, that was, we all had that in mind.
Yeah, 'cause I think for me, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question. So kind of just going off your thought, Arn, has there been, is there some sort of metric that we can use to see if there has been an increase in applications for these funds since the start of this? Or are we expecting this time around that there are gonna be more or less applications that will either lessen the amount we distribute?
I'm gonna turn that over to Wayne. I'm sure we certainly keep, well, actually, I can't answer. We're new. And since this happens every other year, this is our first time. So Wayne's been here a little longer. I'm not sure. The records have got to be somewhere. There's got to be a way for us to go back through our archives and see how many applications we've received in the past.
We can certainly find that. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I think I've been here for maybe 3 or 4 cycles, and typically the number of applicants are relatively the same. Some applicants might not apply every single cycle when we might get a new applicant, but the total number is relatively the same. We have a pretty well-established community and a relationship with community-based organizations, so they generally know how it goes. They generally know we have a certain fixed amount from HUD every year, about $600,000 from CDBG, and only 15% of that is for public services, so about 90,000 or so. So it's not a whole lot of funding, and folks sort of know that. And where we have been oversubscribed is typically not necessarily because we get a lot more applicants, but because each organization might be applying for a certain amount. So it's really sort of the amount that they're applying for, as opposed to the number of organizations that are applying. I believe we'll usually get something like, again, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but for CDBG public services, we might get anywhere from 8 to 12 organizations, and it's probably a relatively similar number of organizations for the general fund bucket as well. Parneet may have more closer familiarity with the general fund organizations.
Yeah, that sounds about right, Wayne. I think we had around like 10 to 12 last year, and I believe that was the same for the prior cycle. And also, we did a comparison of the prior cycle and the prior cycle, and we did notice, I think just about every single organization had an increase in their funding request. And that was just due to the natural inflation and all sorts of those types of things. So it wasn't anything egregious that we saw. And we do expect and anticipate funding requests to kind of have this sort of escalator for the years to come.
Last question.
Do index as well,
Yeah.
right?
So I remember and commissioners, please correct me if I'm wrong. In a past iteration, one of the agencies had the same agency had 2 different buckets of requests, and both buckets got requested at a certain percentile. I think it was 75%. Are we gonna continue? I think it was CSA. Are we gonna continue down that path where an agency
Bill
can
Wilson's?
apply twice under different departments or whatever? Or is that gonna be consolidating into one bucket and then every organization just gets?
Okay, my first time at this organization, but do you mean this different programs under the same organization? Because
yeah, and I
that
wonder-
would be allowable,
Okay,
yes,
so any agency could then,
yes.
within their applied,
Like CSA has
Right, right.
multiple programs. So we
Food
can-
nutrition.
so an agency
Yes.
can then apply under their multiple programs for more funding.
Yeah.
Correct.
Got it.
I thought it was
Thank you for that
CSA.
clarification.
Yeah, I remember the
I think it
workers,
has a lot.
our organization had multiples also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was like, wait, we just approved that one, wait, what? And then it was because it was in a different program out
I
there.
think too, I can say for public services, when an organization applies and they apply to one, maybe perhaps CDBG, but we realize that they might be better suited for general fund, we at a staff level can make that switch as well, just based on the criteria. That level of detail isn't always shared, just because you know, at the end of the day, we're funding the organizations. It doesn't really matter what funding source it comes from on their side, but we will analyze it and determine whether or not that program, which CDBG or general funded applies to. And I think, Julie, in terms of CDBG, which priority they select as well, that can be shifted if staff feel that's necessary.
And just for the commission's knowledge, Ms. Barnard keeps saying this is her first cycle. It's her first cycle here. We're very lucky to have her because she's done multiple cycles other places.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Alec, I don't know your history as
No,
well.
not worried at all. Yeah, we know. Yeah, I think Wayne has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what both Parneet and Julie have said, and also just to add, in the application, we'll be asking the applicants to specify which funding bucket that they're seeking funding from and for what purpose. And I believe this was covered, but just to reiterate, CDBG has stricter eligibility requirements. And so there could be activities that are similar to CDBG, but it may not meet all the HUD requirements. The general fund bucket is just more flexible. So it could fund similar types of activities, but that may not strictly meet CDBG requirements, or it could fund a wider variety of activities that just aren't really covered under CDBG. So that is a more flexible piece. And as Parneet noted, in the last cycle, there were modifications in terms of shifting the funding requests under the buckets. I think there were a couple of organizations where we did that to try to maximize the number of groups that could be funded and the amount that could be funded, and aligning it for the requested funding activities. So there is that flexibility, but we do ask for them to specify which funding bucket that they're asking for, and they could ask for both.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'm a little startled by something on page 4 under the CDBG. It says a maximum of 15% for public services and 20% for administration. Good Lord, can't we get the administration down? It seems a little crazy to have to spend more for for administration in order to do some public service.
So those percentages are just caps that are established by HUD. So, you know, for public services, we always meet the 15% cap because there's such
Yeah.
a need. But for administration, the city doesn't necessarily have to go all the way up to the 20%. It's just HUD establishing guidelines just to ensure that organizations don't go beyond that.
If I could
That is
add,
getting the administration costs down. I would assume.
I don't think we use the full 20% here once we factor in the amount of program income that we get. So at this city, I don't think we're reaching the 20% annually.
I just want to note that the 20% is also covering the funding that goes towards capital projects. For example, Crestview Hotel, affordable housing, which is, these are pretty complicated projects, and you know, we can also use that to fund our consultant services, which does provide a lot of technical assistance with projects. It helps fund the work that goes into developing the consolidated plan, and it goes towards staff time. And so what you're saying resonates, and at the same time, we are finding the need to be able to have enough resources and capacity to not only fund the upfront work, but to do the ongoing contracting, oversight, monitoring, and compliance for the life of the projects.
If I will, procedural question. It's been mentioned a couple of times or hinted at by some of my colleagues about not having applications anymore. I believe in the past, way distant past, we used to see the applications. And I remember in some of these long discussions, a very common refrain was, well, if I only could see the application and see what their budget looked like, if I could only see something that they wrote and understand it directly. We trust staff recommendations, but I think when we get into these debates with each other, we often would benefit from more information. And I wonder if that would be something that could be brought back to us, just a digital packet. And we all do read them in advance, so I promise you it's worth the time.
I can respond, unless you want to, Wayne.
No, please go ahead, Julie.
Yeah. So yes, we do intend on providing, well, first of all, we would like to invite the public service or the grantees who have submitted applications to attend the meeting.
That would also
They
be
should be
helpful.
doing that. All
Yes.
of them, if they want the money, they should be here to provide public comment at the public hearing where we decide whether or not they get money. So first of all, you would be hearing a little bit about them and about the program that they, and the funding request from them. But before that, you will receive staff's summary. The full application packet is extremely large. I would prefer to provide you all with, again, a summary of the organization, a summary of what their program is, their budget, their goals, and maybe the bigger picture in terms of what their budget and their goals are. Like, what are the Mountain View budget? What is the Mountain View goal? So you have a sense, like, from organization to organization of essentially how much bang for your buck are you getting for each program. So, and then we will provide you with a staff recommendation and let you know of any that are not eligible for funding. Is there any information beyond that you think you would need to make an educated decision?
I know a lot of what we wondered about is in terms of the impact. You know, they're asking for X, how is X going to be spent? What percentage of their total budget is that? How important is what they're asking to be funded in terms of their overall program? Those are the kind of questions that we are looking to tease out in data. I'm sure my colleagues have other thoughts, but I do want to, before I forget, tee off the comment about applicants coming to speak. I believe that the last time we did this, only one or two did show up. I had talked to one, was that?
No,
Was it
my problem last year, or 2 years ago, was the biggest requesters
Yes.
didn't show up. And we were like, these are the biggest requesters. The largest amounts didn't show up. So
Right.
that's what we were like,
And I did ask one of them, hey, where were you? And I don't remember specifically. It was a bit of a, well, I didn't know I had to because we do this every year. So I think it needs to be brought back to the, if you're asking for money, we would really, we are going to evaluate if you're going to show up or not. This is really important to the commissioners and they will use that as part of their criteria.
I
So
agree.
please do.
I agree with you, but Stephanie, the way I remember, there was two meetings, because the first one we approved, that was when, like, even the big askers of the funds, there was two parts. The first one was just to give them the second part, the funds, and that's where we didn't see the main agencies come through. And I think that was where we had like some issue, but like, I think it was just like a formality, like we were just gonna approve the second part of those funds. And that was gonna be it. The first meeting, the one we had in the chambers, that's when every agency, for the most part, attended and spoke to us about what the need is. And
I just
With
remember
that.
at least two of them weren't there
Yeah.
for the big room and stuff. And it did taste bitter. They were like, okay, our biggest amounts going out today. And we're just told to give it because that's what happened last year or that year was, this has been approved. HRC sign off basically. And we were like, but we didn't feel that we got to hear or we got to put in like say in any of that.
So-
just really quickly, just to piggy off what Commissioner Ida Rose said, I think one of the things we would like to see is metrics, especially from previous grantees or those who are gonna continue to apply for the services of seeing. I mean, we understand also that these funds aren't gonna cover every cost of every service they're offering, but just making sure that they are in good faith, right? Doing what we, maybe as staff, y'all get to see that, but I think we as commissioners would like to see how has that been has it made an impact? If not, do we need to, as commissioners, then allot more money for more families or individuals to be served? I think that would help guide us in our future conversations.
Okay, I want to say a comment. I hear what we all are saying. And I know we've gone through the challenge, but also I want us to be careful of what we're asking for. Because if we start getting into the nitty gritty of wanting to see everything and know everything, like Commissioner, like Vice Chair said already, that we trust that, staff has done the job of, going deep, the application, the budget and all that, especially the analysis and trying to recommend where best the fund should go and all that. So as much as we want to have more information to help us make those decisions, especially we would like to see the applicants in front of us because we had that challenge. I think through the training to encourage the applicants to show up as well, but I think be careful of what we're asking for.
Yeah, I don't want to do their jobs.
But it's almost sounding, okay, let me finish, let me land. But it's almost sounding that that's what we're asking for. And
Exactly.
be careful
Exactly.
what you're asking, and you have to trust that the work is being done behind the scenes. And, I think what would help is seeing those applicants also. I don't want to go through every detail of every application, but at least a summary will be helpful. Something that will give us a sense of, okay, and also having them there than trying to make us decide on, like rubber stamping, we don't know where you are.
So
I'm just trying to make it simple.
I think that that's kind of a conflict. We're asking for the data so we can understand who they are, what they're doing. But then we're asking them to show up as well. So you can either have one or the other, right? If we're digging into that data, we're gonna know what we need to know. But then that's asking the staff.
You have time to go through the data.
For more work for the staff. Now, do we want to do that, right? Or do we want to make it mandatory for them to come in? And is that possible?
I think in the one of the years, if you recall, it must seem like everyone showed up. It made it easier for us to hear them advocate for themselves. The year where we didn't have people, we had questions in our minds, like,
We had no data and.
exactly, we didn't have that. So we're not asking for,
We've gotten the book, we've gotten the big thick book.
but that was because of
Right.
COVID too,
Right.
remember?
We got it before COVID. as
Oh,
well.
yeah, that's.
And we
true,
still
but-
had questions, right?
Mm.
Depending on, because everyone here is different, they look at things differently.
Mhm.
So we, like, I'm digging into the data and that's all I need to, I made a small question. Whereas Jones, like, I need to talk to the person. I want to be connected with them because I'm not gonna look at all these numbers. So it's, we have to find a balance somehow with this, because we're not gonna get all of this. I'm definitely not gonna ask the staff to give me, because I could ask for all this data.
But you don't have the time to go through all that, that's what I'm saying.
don't
like,
want
all
You
that.
don't walk in my shoes. I may put this aside.
And we do have several hands up that
Yeah,
might
that's-
help guide this conversation.
I would, I would like to speak to this, but I would like to hear from them first.
Yeah, if I could just comment on the question regarding the budget, and I can at least share from the application, so just for awareness, the general fund application is 12 pages with about 16 attachments. Each attachment can range from 5 to 10. So just volume wise, you could be looking at 50 pages per applicant. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to share that with you. The second thing regarding the budget question, we do not ask applicants for their organization's budget. We ask them for the budget for their proposed program that they are applying for, as well as the overall program. So for example, the Health Trust does Meals on Wheels. They do Meals on Wheels in multiple cities in the county. We ask them for their budget for what they're going to serve in Mountain View, and then we can see what portion of that is a part of their overall Meals on Wheels budget. So I just wanted to clarify, we don't ask for the entire budget, but you will see the program budget compared, you will see the service area budget compared to the program budget. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, there's at least 50 pages per application.
I'll go ahead and go. I'd like to offer some suggestions and maybe some additional context for balancing due diligence with staff capacity, and then also helping to manage the amount of information that you all may be reviewing. First, the city is an entitlement jurisdiction. We receive funding from HUD. We receive funding from HUD and continue to do so only if we remain in good standing. And we remain in good standing only if our subrecipients are in good standing. So there's a built-in regulatory incentive for us to be working with and monitoring our subrecipients. As part of the requirement of receiving funding, they do have to provide quarterly reports, and we report on this to HUD. We have to enter it into a system, and then we sum up all the information on a yearly basis. Every year, we have to report to HUD using a consolidated reporting tool called the CAPER, and that is made available at the end of each fiscal year to provide a summary and a review of the goals achieved and what the organizations have done. If there might be any challenges or things that we're working through, that's documented in the CAPER. So that's our ongoing monitoring tool. Our application seeks to provide and receive an appropriate level of information for us to review the due diligence. We're not looking to be in the business of auditing the organizations as a whole, as Pranita is saying. We're looking to see if they're generally in good standing, if they have experience providing and delivering the services that they are proposing, and do they comply and meet the CDBG eligibility requirements. And that's typically the framework that Mountain View and all entitlement jurisdictions are using to balance due diligence, administrative capacity, and having an efficient process that's still comprehensive yet reasonably streamlined. So I wanted to offer some context there if that helps the HRC's deliberation. I would recommend that we can let the applicants know that there is a strong interest for applicants to attend the meeting. I don't know that we would or could make it mandatory, and then that can factor into your recommendations to council, but we can certainly pass along the message that they're strongly encouraged to attend the March HRC meeting.
And Director Chen, one follow-up question. The CAPER report you just described, is that a public document?
It is a public document. We just had one, and we're happy to, after this meeting, share it with this group. And what we're doing right now to make it even more accessible is to hold them as public hearings at the city council, which is what was done. And I believe it's also posted on our website. So we're happy to share the most recent caper to this group to give you an example of the type of annual reporting that is required.
I think that'd be great, given what this body deliberates and what they do, for them to actually see an after action report would be great.
I think I would just like to summarize my takeaways from this recent discussion. I think for me, my personal thought is I do not want to request more work and more information from staff. I think based on what we received last year and the context we've received just now, I'm happy with the information that we'll be getting in our reports. I'd like to see that after action report. I think that what I am comfortable asking for and what seems like this body has been discussing is priorities on messaging. And like we've talked about, I would like to see messaging that encourages the organizations to send a representative to the meeting. I agree, we probably can't make it mandatory. That's probably a whole different thing. But I would like to see that messaging. And I would also like to see messaging going back to our previous discussion to any of the previous applicants or smaller applicants that might be unsure if they still qualify. Just kind of the encouragement of like, hey, please do apply. And I wanted to thank staff for taking the time to provide technical assistance to those smaller organizations, because I know that that makes a huge difference. If they don't have a robust grant writing department, to have somebody to answer questions for them. So thank you for that.
Are there any more comments or input from commissioners? Is there any other attendee? All right, seeing there are no more comments and no member of the public, we're going to move on to item 7. So commissioner and staff comments, questions, and commission report. No action will be taken on any questions raised by the commission at this time. And state law prohibits the commission from discussing or acting on substantive non-agenda items. Staff, the floor is now open to commission first and then to staff.
Mountain View tree lighting.
What is that?
This Saturday, right? Mountain View tree-
Monday.
Oh, I'm way wrong. Okay, thank you. Okay.
5:30.
5:30, okay, yeah, right. I was like, woo! I think if you go to the Chamber of Commerce beforehand, they have hot chocolate, so hot tip there. At least they usually do.
Is this Monday coming up?
Yeah, this Monday at 5:30, tree lighting,
5:30 to 8 p.m.
5:30
right
PM.
here in the plaza.
Cool.
Okay, well, I want to thank staff for doing an awesome job today and being patient and answering all our questions and for the presentation. So thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anything more from commission? You? Oh, no. Anyway, before I turn it over to staff for any comments, I just want to share with you all that I will not be continuing with the HRC. The next, yeah. So this is my last meeting with you all. Yeah. I have had a run with you all this past 4 years. I've really grown and yeah, it's been amazing. I didn't even realize that I could even lead or be in any capacity, just knowing from where I come from and being even a contributor in any kind of shape or form. But I think after taking my leadership Mountain View in 2015, it just opened up several opportunities and just, brought out the leader in me and just seeing the impact that I've been able to bring and to work with, every single one of you and with staff, especially with Christina, before and now again. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirvana. It's been an honor to serve with you.
And while you take a minute, on behalf of our mayor, our city council, our entire community. The mayor just wants to provide you with a certificate of appreciation.
Wow,
We have a debt of gratitude to you, so thank you.
thank you, thank you. Oliver. Thank you. I mean, I'll still be around, still popping in, because I'm just community minded in that way, but I just be moving on to other things, but also stepping back in other ways as well. But I know the person that I am, I'm always willing and looking for opportunities to give and do. But I'm just doing some modifications going forward, so, and I'll still see you all around, so. Better. Yeah. So, yeah.
You don't have anything to say, Joe?
I do.
Oh. Oh, wait.
Some people in the city think that because I'm on the Human Rights Commission, I'm the one that they should talk with about their concern. Now, some of the concerns are so specific, I can say, I think I'm not the right person, but you need to talk with X, Y, Z, or go to the meeting of A, B, or C. However, some of them are so, in a way, unspecific in terms of the bodies in the city that I can't figure out where they should go except Ask Mountain View, and for some reason really they think that that's a black hole. And that hasn't been my experience, but apparently some people feel that it is. So anyway, the concern that has been raised now with me by several different people who live in different areas of the city. So it's not specific to one neighborhood. And that is, especially now with electrified bicycles, that, and especially with no age limit or eligibility, they feel that the city is less safe than it was before electrified bicycles. And that's true with skateboards too. Anyway, they wondered how the city could have a program that pushed for safety for not only those people using the electrified bicycles or scooter or boards, but also the people who are walking and not aware of these vehicles coming behind. And when I mentioned that to my daughter, she said, you know, we did some really crazy things when we were kids. But one thing we knew was if we were riding a bicycle, before we passed anybody, we had this little bell on our bicycle and we would use it so people knew we were coming. And we were told by our parents that the courteous thing to do would be to say on your right after we use that little thing. Now, I don't know what our body can do, but I wonder if there is a way to encourage the city to have safety classes for bicycle users, electrified or not. I don't know now whether people even have to or are encouraged to license their bicycles. When our kids had bicycles, that was encouraged, and it was great because when our daughter's bicycle was stolen because it was licensed it was obvious when they found it that it was hers. And we didn't have to go through anything. So if there's something we can pass on to,
Had slight
the
responses
body that
anyways.
is concerned about that, I think that that would boost safety in the city.
I have a quick response that might have things on your perspective. When we were up for our commissionership, I was just up for mine, and on there, they also had the pedestrian and bike safety commission.
Right.
Multiple people that were applying and reapplying for their positions on their commission brought up electrical bicycle safety concerns, interests on following through, that kind of stuff. So it is known, people are aware of it, people are getting the attention there. I just know that that's going on. So you shouldn't be, I'm not saying that they have answers yet, but I am saying that they're working on it.
Well, I encourage those people actually to go to Bike and Head Commission. And,
I think that's a good.
and they said they would do that, but they wanted me to bring it to HRC too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I thought we were finishing off this with Nirvana, saying our thank yous, and you just took us way down bicycle lane.
She took us on a little trip.
Yeah,
What you do with bicycles,
yeah.
you know?
So I want to finish up with Nirvana. This is your carpool buddy, right? So you should have been saying something real nice to me.
Well, now she doesn't have one.
Now we know what we're gonna get into if we decide to give you a ride.
Okay, she's getting an electrical bicycle. Oh, there we go.
But I wanted to definitely say thank you. You've been on the commission with me, so we came in together. We're not leaving together. We know this is a big commitment. So we here appreciate what you're doing or what you've done for us. And we know that once you're a commissioner, you're always gonna be a commissioner. So I want to say thank you so much
Thank you.
for being a part of our team, being a part of our community, and also being a friend. Now say something nice.
It's okay, she sees
When you're walking
me all the time.
Oh.
So just because I'm nosy, did you go to the other commission or?
Yeah, you are nosy.
I was there, I heard.
So
Ah.
take a picture with you afterwards.
We can do a group photo.
We could do a group photo.
Now we can go to staff.
Are we good?
Yeah, so I need to go to staff. Does anybody have anything to say about anything?
Not on recording.
Oh. What's this?
Not on what?
announce that?
Oh.
We conclude the meeting.
I just have one staff update. So I put at everyone's table a flyer with the biodiversity.
Yeah.
So staff is just asking commissioners, if you haven't had the opportunity to take the survey, to please do so. There's a QR code on the flyer. The survey is open till December 15th. Your feedback will help us to develop the strategies in the action plan that'll be coming to council later next year. So please take a moment to take the survey and as well share it with your network, your neighbors and your friends in Mountain View. We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yay.
Commissioner Popcorn, you didn't have a comment? I saw you raise your hand.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, what time is it now? It is 8:05. This meeting is now adjourned.